delegates, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 18th session of the Western Collegiate Model United Nations. I would like to hereby call this meeting to session officially. We'll start with a roll call for participating in this conference. My name is Brian Matthewstack, and it has been my distinct pleasure to serve as the Secretary General throughout this year, alongside a talented Secretariat who you will meet in a moment. We've worked hard this year to prepare topics that we hope will be informative to you, challenging, and will help you to have a learning experience. The bulk of our work with the start of this conference is over. Now it's your turn. I hope that you will put forth a great effort, if you will get out of this conference everything that you put back into it.
Most of you, I think, have been introduced to international relations through an introductory course where a part of that time was dedicated to a discussion of international organizations, most prominent of them, this one, the United Nations. But the United Nations is an intergovernmental organization, and delegates come here, as well as to New York, as representatives of sovereign nation-states. What has happened in the international arena since the founding of the United Nations is the discovery of a whole bunch of activity that wouldn't be covered, couldn't be covered by nation-states, and hence non-governmental organizations have filled that void, have come into being for the purpose of doing what nation-states often either don't, can't, or won't do.
I just think, for me, it was such a pleasure to be invited to be here because I knew, as I told Dr. Haslund, it's very hopeful for me that you would do this. Because that you care, first of all, is a big piece of it. If you don't care, nothing else matters. The deep-seated concern, whatever drove you here, that there are things in 2010 that there are just dumb things that we have figured out as a species, like why, how to prevent a mother or a child dying every single minute from something that in 2010 we know how to prevent or cure. It's crazy. The structures aren't there, the finances aren't there, the trust isn't there, but we do know how to do it. And I think people my age and older have done some decent things, but we've also chunked a lot of stuff and left a long list of things for you to fix. So that you care, first of all, is a really big deal. And I just want to congratulate you for putting the time and the effort, taking your spring break, not being at some black-lit, pulse-light, pulse-lit, foam-spewing disco. It's better for our species that you're here. It really is. And I just want to congratulate you because the concern and compassion comes first. You can't manufacture that. You can't prescribe that. You can't deem that. People in their late teens and early 20s ought to care. The UN cannot make a resolution that will have any effect. It's got to come personally. NGOs love to divide themselves into sectors. What do you do? Well, I work in the environmental sector. I work in the health sector. I work in the gender sector. Now, and it's all perfectly reasonable and right that the specialization and division of labor has to be divided. But the reality is, people, human beings, aren't sectors. They're just people. And they need sort of everything. They need to have food. And they need to have security. And they need to have shelter. They need to have governance. They need to have hope. They need to have art. Yeah. They need to have a sense that there's something that's going to pull them out of bed every morning to make it better. And I have a sense that that's what brought you here. That whatever it is, either genetically or metaphysically, that made you care is a very good, precious resource that you host within yourself. And so I just want to applaud you for that. I want to encourage you, despite whatever you read on the news, don't lose faith and never quit. never quit. And the worst thing you can do is listen to old guys like me tell you what you have to do. But remember this, never quit. Because it really matters, and the change that you want to see that's brought you here because you know things can and should be better, you've got to figure it out. You've got great mentors in the process to do that. And for me, it's you yourselves are a great antidote to the kind of skepticism or cynicism that you just get when you turn on the news. So I just want to thank you, congratulate you. It's a long list of things that you have to figure out. Congratulations, and get to work.
My final point would be that in the Middle East and elsewhere, the powerful countries would be better served by voluntarily accepting the restraints of the UN Charter and of the international rule of law. That if you look at the disasters of foreign policy in the recent history of the United States and other actors, Soviet Union when it existed, and the colonial powers, they almost always failed when they ignored the constraints of law and the UN Charter. In other words, the UN international law, because of the rise of nationalism and the decline of the utility of military power, now expresses a very practical set of guidelines for the pursuit of self-interest. And ignoring those guidelines is possible because of the way the organization is structured, but it's very rarely desirable or beneficial. And so in that sense, acting legally is also acting selfishly. See, and it wasn't always the case. Up to World War II, military power was very effective and very efficient, and the whole colonial system rested on that, as well as our control of much of the life of the Western Hemisphere. So one has a situation where the leadership of many countries, including our own, still believes in this 19th century utility of military power and invests in it on an incredible level. But the historical record increasingly shows that the way in which to achieve peace, justice, and security is through a much more respectful attitude toward law, the UN Charter. And therefore, part of what I said at the beginning, how do we become good 21st century citizens, is to learn this fundamental change in political reality and how that should be addressed both within the UN, within the foreign policy of major countries, and in terms of how we allocate our own resources. So with these words, I welcome your questions and look forward to discussing.